Hey everyone, this is Nick, and I'm recording this at 6 AM because there's another heat wave, and if I don't start super early, it's going to get unbearably hot. Exactly like the Linux and open source news. Okay, so now I'm even making segues for my own intros. Is there a segue detox camp that I could go to? Anyway, this week we have NVIDIA opening up 73,000 lines of code about their GPUs, which is going to be of great help for projects such as Nouveau. The rumors about Cutefish's death were apparently greatly exaggerated, as new work has begun on the project, and DuckDuckGo finally fixed the Microsoft trackers issue. Almost. So, let's unpack all of this, but first, a word from our sponsor. Thanks to Linode for sponsoring this video. Linode is my favorite solution to run a Linux or gaming server. It's what I use to run my own Nextcloud instance and my own OnlyOffice server. The interface is super easy to use. They are affordable, they have tons of documentation online, and they have one-click deployable servers for a ton of applications or games, like Grav, for example. Grav is an open source content management system, or CMS. You can use it through a graphical admin panel or through the command line. Page templates can be written in Markdown, and it uses the Twig engine. And you can deploy it in one click on Linode and start building a website. And to get you started, Linode is giving you $100 of free credit to get your own Linux server or gaming server running. To get access to that, just click the link in the description below. Gitlab planned a surprising move this week. They were going to delete dormant projects in free Gitlab accounts. All code in projects that have been inactive for a year or more and are hosted by the free accounts was to be deleted automatically. And while this might have seemed like a perfectly normal thing to do, this could have had enormous impacts on open source, as a lot of projects were hosted on that free tier, and some projects are just complete, as in they don't need to get any more features and they don't necessitate any more code to be contributed. A lot of projects are also just dormant and could have been picked up by someone else. Fortunately, the internet is very good at being outraged, and that outrage pushed Gitlab to revert that policy. Instead, they will move inactive projects to object storage, so they will still be available, but they will be a bit slower to access. With GitHub turning into a copyright laundering machine thanks to Microsoft and Copilot, and GitLab pulling moves like these, I really wonder where somebody who has ethical concerns can turn their heads to. Now, fortunately, GitLab reverted the decision, because seriously, GitLab, code doesn't take up that much storage. NVIDIA keeps racking up points by opening more stuff up. This time, it's not a kernel module or a driver, but it's equally as important, if not more. It's documentation. They recently published 73,000 lines of header files detailing all the 3D classes used by their GPUs, from the Fermi architecture up to the current gen Ampere. So from the GeForce 400 series to the latest RTX. These files are used to define all the classes that can be used to program the 3D engine of a GPU. And they also include the texture headers and the texture sampler layout. So basically, it's going to be a fantastic help for open source driver developers to be able to make great progress instead of reverse engineering stuff. I would expect the Nouveau drivers to get a big boost from this in the future. Now, of course, it doesn't solve every issue, the big one seemingly being the fact that reclocking newer GPUs is still impossible on the Nouveau drivers, because that feature needs signed firmware, but it's still a good step forwards. I really hope that all these open source work from NVIDIA results in either a very good open source driver that supports all NVIDIA GPUs, or at least a way better integration of the proprietary driver with proper Wayland support, proper hybrid graphics support, no more screen tearing. Let me dream my dreams. If you use KDE, you probably were confronted in the past with the inability of Dolphin to easily manage system files that require root permissions. Well, you're in luck, as someone is working on exactly that. It's just a first draft of the code, and it relies on PolicyKit and Dbus to basically grab requests for admin rights, ask the user to authenticate, and then perform the required action using already existing code. This is relatively secure if you use sandboxed apps, but if you don't, you'll have to trust Dolphin to not be compromised. This new feature requires patches somewhere else in the stack, and it apparently still crashes a lot, so it's not quite ready. and there's no word yet on whether this might be implemented natively in base KDE or in base Dolphin. But at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I absolutely think that all file managers should have easy access to system files. Just let the user perform their actions, ask them to authenticate to check if they have admin rights, and then just display a warning if the action could have destructive consequences. There's no reason to prevent that kind of access graphically when the user can already do it using the command line with a higher percentage of chances of doing something really stupid. Microsoft is doing some weird stuff again, this time with Microsoft Teams. You can normally sign up for Teams using any email address. You're not limited to a Microsoft account. Except some private email services just can't seem to be accepted, like Tutanota. If you use this service, you just cannot sign up for Teams, as Microsoft just refuses to register your account. Supposedly because Microsoft treats Tutanota as a corporate email. The first person who used Tutanota to register on Teams was assigned the whole domain, as if it were a corporate email, and so anyone else just can't sign up. The problem has been reported since January 2021, and Microsoft hasn't done a single thing to fix it yet. So while the inability to sign up seems like an honest mistake, the refusal to acknowledge and fix the issue, which looks like a super easy fix, is a bit weird. Microsoft has since said they're looking into this issue after Tutanota published an incendiary blog post calling for more regulation on big tech companies to prevent that kind of abuse. Now, it's probably an honest mistake on Microsoft's part. They cannot parse every single email domain and identify what they are, if they are public sign-up or corporate sign-ups. I understand it, but the delay to fix the problem after it's been reported is unacceptable. When you're a big company such as Microsoft and you're basically gatekeeping other services to be able to integrate with your own services, you need to be extremely reactive, and that's just not the case here. I previously reported on the presumed abandonment of Cutefish, the desktop environment based on Qt that looks really close to macOS, and Cutefish OS, the associated Linux distro. People were planning a fork, but this has now been put on hold, as the project seems to be coming back to life. There's a new announcement on the official GitHub repo, promising a new website called openfish.org, and there's a new README file listing 5 items as progressing, including adapting the distro to Ubuntu 22.04, preparing the website, and a few very vague items like fixing bugs or adding features. The fork won't happen anymore unless the project doesn't go anywhere despite these new announcements. So whatever happens, we can probably expect Cutefish to stick around for a little bit longer. Interesting to see about this new website though. Why openfish.org? They already had a website. So the way it feels to me is that the company that developed Cutefish and Cutefish OS has just abandoned the project, and it looks like it might be one of the original developers trying to restart it with another name to not have trademark issues. Another busy week for the GNOME project, as developers have worked on optimizing GNOME Shell's performance when displaying workspaces. On top of that, GNOME Photos will now use the wallpaper portal to set a picture as your background or lock screen, and GNOME Web got a friendlier way to take a screenshot of a web page with a context menu item and a keyboard shortcut. Newsflash, the RSS feed reader, got support for Nextcloud News, which is pretty cool, and it got a libadwaita makeover. Emberall, the music player, will now have better search inside of playlists. Loop, the new image viewer, can now show file properties, but not EXIF data just yet. And there are 2 new apps called Lobure, a GTK4 client for lobsters, and EarTag, a simple one file at a time music tag editor. And yes, that's a client for lobsters, but not as in crustaceans can use the service, more like as in lobster.rs, which is a link aggregation service. There's also a new GNOME Shell extension called Reading Strip, that is a reading guide designed to help people affected by dyslexia. It's good to see GNOME's performance being worked on. Since GNOME 40, it's been really great on all of the devices I ever used GNOME on. But still, hey, if you can squeeze more performance out of the same hardware, then perfect. KDE developers also worked pretty hard, fixing 3 very high priority Plasma bugs and 1 15-minute bug. They also added a new keyboard shortcut to activate present windows with only showing the windows from the currently open app. and they simplified the way you can share a folder with Samba from the file properties dialog by adding explicit error messages letting you know what to do in case something goes wrong. I guess it still misses a simple one-click button to automatically fix the error, but that's still a much better experience than before. Keyboard shortcuts in menus are now a subdued gray color that makes them less visible compared to the actual menu item that you want to click, and they added breeze icons for Windows DLLs, probably useful if you have wine prefixes. The timer plasma widget has been vastly overhauled with a clickable start and stop button, and fixing almost all of its open bugs. And searching for widgets will be easier now, since the search now also uses their keywords instead of just their names. Of course, there's the usual bunch of bug fixes for KRunner, Wayland, Ocular, and the system settings. I really wish we had a very simple way on Linux to one-click share a file or folder across the local network. Like Samba or Warpinator are great, but they're far off a just right-click, share, and every other computer on the local network can see it and access it. Would just be a lot easier. DuckDuckGo got some flack earlier this year for not blocking Microsoft's trackers in their browser extension and mobile web browser, apparently due to a search syndication agreement they had signed to be able to use Bing results in their search engine. It seems that this issue is now solved, as DuckDuckGo will now be blocking these tracking scripts too. They also made their tracker block lists available for more transparency, and they added a new help page to help users understand how the blocking actually works. There's still a type of script that won't be blocked, and that's the ones used when a user clicks on a search ad in DuckDuckGo. These ads are provided by Bing, and the script lets advertisers measure ad effectiveness. Now, users can disable ads in DuckDuckGo's search settings, so that's not such a big issue. And they're also apparently working on a non-profiling technology to replace these scripts, but that's not ready just yet. I've been using DuckDuckGo for a while now, and while this issue is now solved, there's still the problem of the results being pretty hit or miss depending on the complexity of your query. So I'll be looking at the alternatives this month on a dedicated video, so subscribe if you want to see that. More good news for open source, as DreamWorks, a small 3D animation studio you might have heard of, has planned to make their in-house production renderer open source. This tool, called MoonRay, is a ray tracing renderer they used on animated movies like The Bad Guys or the upcoming Puss in Boots movie. And it will be available later this year with Aras, the complementary distributed rendering framework that lets you render scenes by pooling the resources of multiple computers. MoonRay is apparently capable of photorealistic output and is apparently able to keep the rendering computers busy all the time using all the available power, which is good in that case. MoonRay will be available using the Apache license on DreamWorks' GitHub page. Always nice to see these high-end professional tools being open sourced, and DreamWorks is probably going to get some contributions to make it even better, so top notch. And let's move on to some gaming news. The Steam Deck has passed the 4,500 certified games mark, with 1,988 titles verified and 2,512 games marked as playable. There are also 1,834 games marked as unsupported. New entries this time are Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, the PS4 title finally coming to PC, Dominions 4, or Bridge Constructor The Walking Dead. A beta version of Proton is also coming, 7.0-4, still in beta for now. It makes a bunch of games playable and provides a ton of fixes for Final Fantasy XIV, Assassin's Creed Origins, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and a lot more. It also brings newer versions of DXVK, VKD3D Proton, it improves video playback, and reduces the space used by game prefixes. And finally, the Steam Deck is expanding into Asia. Valve is partnering with Komodo to distribute the handheld in Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. This move apparently won't affect the current distribution of the deck in existing markets. Now, speaking about the deck, I've had it for 5 months now, a little bit over 5 months, and I made a video to see how well it holds up. So if you've missed it, click the link in the card up top somewhere, or in the description. It's also going to be there probably. So yeah, check it out, it's cool. And also check out today's sponsor if you need a new device that runs Linux perfectly. Tuxedo is a company that makes laptops and desktops that run Linux out of the box. You can pick between a nice selection of very popular distros, or you can just buy the device and install your own, knowing that everything will be supported out of the box. And if there are a few tweaks needed here and there, Tuxedo has PPAs and repos that let you basically fix every single small niggle that you might have, so top notch. They have a pretty wide range of devices, from the smallest Nox and Ultrabooks to the biggest gaming PCs, gaming towers, gaming laptops, or just workstations if you need to do actual work, you know, that's also cool. And every single of their devices can be configured with GPU options, CPU options, SSDs, RAM options. Basically, you can tweak anything, and you can even add your own graphics design on the lid of the laptop or the case of the desktop, which looks really, really nice. So, if you need a new device that runs Linux, and if you want to help support Linux development, well, you can just click the link in the description and grab yourself a Tuxedo laptop or desktop. They're really cool. Okay, thanks everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to write a comment. And if you didn't like it, well, you're welcome to dislike it and tell me why in the comments as well. And if you want to help support what I do and you really enjoy the channel, you can either click on the super thanks button underneath the video or the PayPal link in the description, or you can join my Patreon subscribers or my YouTube members. Both get access to a weekly Patreon cast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. So thanks everyone for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!